My name is Ingrid Halvorsen and I'm 34. I found out about my brother's wedding from a group text. Not a phone call. Not a conversation over coffee. A text message with a photo of the invitation attached, sent to 12 people at once, and my name was somewhere in the middle of that list. The photo showed cream cardstock with gold lettering. Kawaii, it said. Late September. I read it standing at the kitchen counter in our house outside Anacortes, still in my coat, rain tapping the window above the sink. I set my phone down. My brother Mikkel was marrying a woman named Daria. I had met her 4 times. The first time was at a barbecue the summer before, where she had stood near the cooler all afternoon and watched the water. The second time was at my parents' house for my father's birthday, where she had arrived late and left early and said very little in between. The third time was at a marine trade dinner in Burlington, where Mikkel had brought her along and she had spent most of the evening on her phone. The fourth time was at our house, where she had walked through every room without being invited to, opened a closet door in the hallway, and then told Mikkel the layout was inefficient. I remembered that word. Inefficient. The harbor behind our house was gray that morning, the kind of gray that sits flat on the water and does not move. I could smell diesel and salt air even through the closed window. I poured coffee I did not drink. I picked my phone back up and looked at the invitation photo again. My parents were not on the group text. I checked twice. 12 names. My parents were not among them. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, and I could tell from the first syllable that she already knew. Her voice had that careful quality it gets when she is holding something still inside herself. Did you see? I asked. I saw, she said. I did not say anything else. She did not either. The ferry horn sounded from somewhere out on the water, one long low note, and then it was quiet again. That was the beginning of it. Not the wedding itself and not what happened after. The beginning was standing in my kitchen at 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, smelling salt air, listening to my mother breathe carefully on the other end of a phone, both of us understanding something neither of us said out loud yet. My husband Einar came downstairs while I was still standing there. He looked at my face and did not ask. He poured his own coffee and stood beside me and looked out at the harbor. That was enough. That was what 6 years of marriage had made possible between us. I leaned against his shoulder for a moment. Then I put my phone in my pocket and went to get ready for work. I thought about my parents the whole drive in. The road followed the water for several miles, evergreen lined on one side and open on the other, and the water was the same flat gray it always was in March. I thought about my father, who had worked a boatyard outside Loch Connor for 31 years. I thought about my mother, who had kept that household running on what a boatyard foreman makes, which is not a number anyone outside a harbor town would call comfortable. I thought about how much they had given Mikkel. Not just money, though there was money, but the kind of giving that does not have a dollar amount attached. Time. Presence. The kind of steady showing up that people only notice when it stops. My parents were not on the group text. I parked and sat in the car for a moment before going in. The rain had picked up. It hit the windshield in sheets and then eased and then came back again. I watched it for a while. I thought about what I had access to. I thought about what I might eventually do with it. 3 days later I would print a single sheet of paper and fold it into my bag and not know yet whether I would use it. Then I went inside. I work in commercial lending. I have for 11 years since I finished my degree at Western and took a position at a regional bank in Anacortes that most people outside the county have never heard of. I am not a flashy person and I do not work in a flashy field. What I do is read documents. I read balance sheets and property records and loan histories and I form judgments about risk. I am good at it. I have been good at it for long enough that the judgment part happens quickly now, almost automatically, the way reading happens quickly once you have done it long enough that you stop seeing the letters. My job is not exciting to describe. What it actually involves on any given day is sitting at a desk in a quiet office in a county seat on Puget Sound, reading numbers that represent other people's lives. A business's gross revenue. A family's debt-to-income ratio. The gap between what someone owns and what they owe. I got good at seeing that gap early. I got good at understanding what the structure of an account says about the person managing it, what the routing of statements reveals about where the power sits, what the silence in a transaction history can mean. These are not skills that come up at dinner parties. They came up now. Einar is a marine contractor. He bids and manages construction projects on the water, docks, boat lifts, some light harbor infrastructure. We met at a county permitting meeting where we were both waiting for the same approval that neither of us got that day. He asked if I wanted coffee while we waited. I said yes. We were married 3 years later in a small ceremony at a state park south of Anacortes, 22 people, my parents in the front row, Mikkel as a groomsman. Daria was not yet in the picture. She appeared about a year into our marriage, and Mikkel brought her around the way he always brought people around, enthusiastically and without much preamble. She was from somewhere outside Sacramento. She worked in event planning. She was sharp and quick and had opinions about everything, which I respected even when the opinions were wrong. She was good at reading a room and she was good at being charming in the first 15 minutes of meeting someone, and both of those things are useful skills. I noted them. I also noted what came after the first 15 minutes, which was a certain kind of flatness, a withdrawal, as if the performance had ended and she was conserving energy for the next one. My mother noted it too. She did not say so directly. She said once that Daria seemed tired a lot. I understood what she meant. The engagement happened fast. 6 months of dating, a proposal at a restaurant in Seattle, a ring that Mikkel told me later cost more than he was comfortable saying out loud. I did not ask the number. He told me anyway. I filed it away the way I file things, not because I thought I would need it but because filing things is what I do. The planning started immediately after, and the planning was Daria's domain entirely. Mikkel deferred to her on everything. This was, I thought at the time, probably fine. Some people are good at planning and some are not, and if she wanted to run it, there was no reason she should not. What I did not anticipate was that running the planning also meant controlling the information. Einar and I found out about venue changes through my brother's social media. We found out about the color scheme through a photo Daria posted. We found out the wedding was in Hawaii through that group text, which did not include my parents, on a Tuesday in March when I was standing in my kitchen in my coat smelling diesel and salt. What I did not find out until 3 days later, when I asked Mikkel directly, was that no arrangements had been made for my parents. No invitation sent. No flights discussed. No hotel room reserved. Nothing. Mikkel said Daria was handling the guest list. I said I understood. I want to be precise about what my parents had done for Mikkel, because the word support is too small and too soft for what it actually was. When Mikkel was 19 and decided he wanted to leave the community college and move to Portland to figure things out, my father quietly transferred $4,200 into his account without being asked. He told Mikkel it was a loan. They both knew it was not. Mikkel lived on that money for 4 months while he figured out what he wanted. He came back. He enrolled in a program in Bellingham. He finished. My father never mentioned the money again. When Mikkel's car died during his 2nd year in Bellingham, my mother drove 2 hours each way on a Saturday to bring him her car and take the bus home. She did this without telling my father what the bus fare cost. I know the bus fare cost because I asked her later. It was $34 each way. She did it twice more that winter. When Mikkel was 26 and working his first real job in Seattle and could not make rent in November because his roommate left without notice, my parents paid the difference. I know this because I was the one who called my father when Mikkel called me in a panic. My father said he would handle it. He did. The difference was $1,100. He did not ask for it back. My parents drove to Bellingham for every one of Mikkel's departmental presentations during his program. There were 6 of them. The drive from Anacortes to Bellingham is not long, but they went to every one, my father in his good flannel shirt, my mother with something baked in a container. They sat in folding chairs in rooms that smelled like old carpet and fluorescent lights, and they listened to their son present work they did not fully understand, and they clapped, and afterward they took him to dinner. My father always ordered the same thing at those dinners. A bowl of soup and whatever the bread option was. My mother always insisted on paying. They drove home afterward in the dark, 2 hours back along the water, and they never mentioned it as a sacrifice. When Mikkel moved to a new apartment in Seattle 2 years ago, Einar and I drove down with our truck and spent a Saturday carrying boxes. My father came too. He is 63 and has a bad left knee from 31 years on a boatyard, and he carried boxes for 5 hours. He did not complain. He did not sit down between trips. He carried boxes until the truck was empty, and then he helped assemble a bed frame, and then he drove home. When Mikkel got a promotion at his firm the year before the engagement, my parents drove to Seattle for the dinner he and Daria threw to celebrate. They stayed one night in a hotel near the waterfront, which cost more than my father would have spent on himself in any other circumstance. He wore a tie. My mother brought a card and a small orchid in a terracotta pot because she had read somewhere that Daria liked plants. Daria accepted the orchid without putting it down anywhere visible. After dinner, my parents drove back to the hotel in the rain and checked out at 6 a.m. to make it home in time for my father's Saturday shift. My mother had called Daria once, early in the engagement, to ask if there was anything she could do to help with the planning. She had offered to help with food for the rehearsal dinner if they wanted a home-cooked option. She had offered to help address envelopes. She had offered her time, which is the thing she has always had to offer, because time is what you give when the dollar amounts have already been given and what you still have left is yourself. Daria had told her they had it covered. My mother said thank you and did not call again. I knew all of this. I had watched all of it. And I had, for months, told myself that families are complicated and weddings are stressful, and Daria was probably overwhelmed. I had told myself these things because they were partially true and because Mikkel was happy and because sometimes you hold things still inside yourself until you understand what they are. By the time the group text arrived without my parents' names on it, I understood. I drove to work along the water road that Tuesday, the rain coming sideways against the driver's side window, the evergreens dark and wet on the other side, and I let myself understand it fully. Not with anger. Anger was not useful. I let myself understand it the way I understand a balance sheet, clearly, completely, without looking away from any of the numbers. My parents had given Mikkel everything they had in every form they had it. And the woman he was marrying had decided they were not worth an invitation. I parked outside the bank. I sat for another moment. The rain had let up slightly. A seagull landed on the hood of the car in front of mine, looked at me once and left. I thought about what I knew. I thought about what I had access to. I thought about the fact that Daria was flying to Hawaii in a matter of days, that Mikkel had a joint account she managed, that the wedding vendors had all been paid or were being paid, that there was a honeymoon hotel and a return flight and a floral deposit and a catering balance, all of it moving through financial infrastructure that I understood in a way that Daria, who planned events but did not read balance sheets, probably did not. I did not decide anything yet. I went inside and I sat at my desk and I opened my first file of the day. I worked through the morning the way I always do, steadily, without rushing, giving each document what it required. I reviewed a commercial line application for a shellfish operation in Skagit County. I reviewed a refinance request from a marina in Mount Vernon that had been sitting in my queue since Friday. I made notes. I asked for additional documentation on the marina file because the receivables history was thinner than I wanted. I sent 3 emails. I ate lunch at my desk, a sandwich I had made at home, and I looked out the window at the water while I ate it. The harbor was flat and the rain had stopped. A tug was moving north slow, leaving a white line behind it on the gray surface. At 2 p.m. my review meeting wrapped early. The office was quiet. I pulled up the account records I had access to in my professional capacity. Not Mikkel's account specifically, I was not the account manager for that account, and I want to be precise about that. I did not access anything I was not permitted to access in my role. But I could see, in general terms, the structure of how accounts at our institution were organized, and I had enough information already to form a picture. The picture was this. The account ran through Daria. The statements went to her email. The notifications went to her phone. Mikkel had full legal access, but practical visibility was hers. I printed a single sheet. An account summary, just the structure, joint holders, notification routing, transaction alert preferences. Nothing more. I folded it once and slid it into the front pocket of my laptop bag. I did not know yet if I would use it. I set it there the way I set documents I am not sure I will need, carefully, within reach, without committing. Then I went to find Petra. Petra has worked 2 desks over from me for 7 years. She has been in banking for 19 years and she does not need things explained twice. I asked her, in general terms, about the process for a concerned family member who wanted to flag a potential issue on an account. She looked at me for a moment. What kind of issue? She asked. Spending pattern that a family member might not be aware of, I said. Large vendor payments going out. Account holder may not have full visibility. Petra understood. That would be a standard account review request, she said. If a joint account holder initiated it. And if the other joint account holder were not local, I said. If they were, say, traveling. Then the requesting holder would just need to come in, Petra said. Or call. I nodded. Thank you, I said. I went back to my desk. I finished my afternoon. I drove home along the water road at 5:51 p.m., the harbor going dark on my right, the evergreens holding the last of the gray light on my left. I did not call Mikkel that evening. I thought about what I knew and what I still needed to know, and I decided I needed one more piece of information before I did anything. The piece I needed was whether my parents had actually been excluded, or whether there had been a miscommunication. I did not want to assume. Assuming is not how I work. I texted Mikkel that night. Not about the wedding. About something ordinary, a question about whether he still had my father's spare ferry token from the summer, because I was going to be in Seattle the following week. It was a real question. It was also a way to open a conversation. He texted back within 10 minutes. Casual, warm, the way Mikkel always is when he is not thinking about anything that makes him uncomfortable. We went back and forth for a few minutes. And then I asked, as naturally as I could manage, had he sorted out logistics for Mom and Dad for the wedding. He took longer to reply that time. When he did, he said Daria was handling the guest list and he thought they were on it. I said okay. I said I had just wanted to check since I had not seen their names on anything. He said he would look into it. He did not look into it. Or if he did not tell me what he found. 2 days passed. I went to work. I drove the water road. The harbor was gray and then lighter gray and then gray again. On Thursday evening I made dinner and Einar sat across from me and we talked about a dock permit he was waiting on and I did not bring up Mikkel. I was still waiting. Then at 9:17 a.m. on a Friday I got a text from Daria. It was the first time she had ever texted me directly. It said, if they want to come they can figure it out. Not my problem. I read it twice. I set my phone face down on my desk. I sat with that for a moment. Not with anger. With clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you have been waiting to understand something and then you finally do. I had been giving her the benefit of the consideration she had not given my parents, and now I was done. I picked my phone back up and forwarded the text to my own email. Then I called Mikkel. He answered on the third ring. Did Daria just text me about Mom and Dad? I said. I talked to her about it, he said. She said the guest count is already tight. Mikkel, I said. She told me they could figure it out themselves. That it is not her problem. She is stressed, he said. I understand that, I said. I am asking you what you are going to do. Another silence. I do not want to make this a bigger thing than it is, he said. Okay, I said. I let the silence hold. Ingrid, he said. I heard you, I said. I will talk to you soon. I ended the call. I went back to my files. I worked until 6 p.m. and I drove home. That night I told Einar everything. He sat across the kitchen table from me and listened without interrupting. Which is one of the things I have always valued about him. When I finished he was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window at the dock light reflecting on the water. Then he looked back at me. What do you want to do? He said. I want to make sure Mom and Dad get to their son's wedding, I said. Okay, he said. And I want Daria to understand something, I said. He waited. He is good at waiting. I want her to understand that the accounts she has been running, I said, have a different kind of visibility than she thinks. Einar looked at me. What did you find? He said. Nothing improper, I said. But the honeymoon hotel is paid through that joint account. The florist deposit. The caterer balance. The return flights. He was quiet. And Mikkel, I said, is technically the initiating account holder. Einar nodded slowly. You are not going to do anything wrong, he said. It was not a question. No, I said. I am going to do exactly what I am permitted to do. He looked at me for another moment. Then he got up and put the kettle on. He came back and sat down. We sat there in the kitchen while the water heated, the dock light moving on the harbor outside. He refilled my glass without being asked. We did not talk much more that night. We did not need to. I booked my parents' flights the following morning. I used my own card. Round trip from Seattle to Lihue, 2 tickets, departing 3 days before the wedding. I booked them a room at a small hotel 6 minutes from the venue. I did this before 8 a.m., before I had coffee, before I had done anything else. Then I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. You are going to the wedding, I said. She did not say anything. I booked the flights, I said. I will send you the confirmation when we hang up. Ingrid, she said. It is done, I said. Do not argue with me. She did not argue. Her voice did something I did not have a word for. I kept my voice even. I need you and Dad to pack light, I said. The hotel has a luggage limit on the shuttle and I do not want you to have to manage big bags. She said she understood. She asked how much the flights cost. I told her not to worry about it. Ingrid, she said again. I will call you tonight with the hotel information, I said. Go tell Dad. I hung up. I sat at my desk for a moment. Outside the kitchen window the harbor was flat and silver and very still. A heron stood at the end of the dock, not moving, just watching the water. I watched it back for a moment. Then I got up and made coffee. That was the easy part. The harder part came 4 days later on a Saturday when Daria found out. I did not plan the timing. She called me. I was in the yard behind our house checking the tie-down on Einar's workboat, which had been sitting on the trailer since August and needed the cover resecured before a forecast blow came through. The phone buzzed in my jacket pocket and I looked at the screen and I answered it. I need to talk to you, she said. Okay, I said. I just found out that you booked flights for your parents. I did, I said. Mikkel did not tell me. I booked them myself, I said. It did not involve Mikkel. A pause. Ingrid, she said, and her voice had that particular quality, warm on the surface, something pressed flat underneath. I think there has been a misunderstanding about what I meant. What did you mean, I said. The guest count is a real constraint. We have a seating chart that is already finalized. If more people show up, it creates problems for the venue. I understand seating charts, I said. So you understand why I could not just add people at this stage. I understand that, I said. I booked my parents a hotel room and 2 flights. Their seating at the reception is something you and Mikkel can discuss. Another pause. This is going to create tension, she said. I hope not, I said. My point, she said, and her voice shifted slightly, became something more deliberate. This is our wedding. Mikkel and mine. And the decisions about who attends are ours to make. Yes, I said. So I am asking you to respect that. I booked flights for my parents so they could attend their son's wedding, I said. What you do with the seating is your decision. She was quiet for a moment. I think you are making this harder than it needs to be, she said. I do not think so, I said. Another silence, longer this time. Can I ask you something, she said. Yes, I said. Do you have a problem with me? Because it feels like there is something underneath this. I thought about how much to say. I thought about the text on my phone. I thought about the fairy token text to Mikkel and his slow reply and the 2 days of silence before Daria called him. I thought about what it had cost my mother to say thank you and not call again. I have a problem with what happened, I said. I am trying to be precise about what the problem is. I thought about my answer. I have a problem with my parents being excluded from my brother's wedding, I said. That is specific. They were not excluded, she said. The list was just tight. You texted me that they could figure it out themselves, I said. That it was not your problem. Silence. I was stressed when I wrote that, she said. I understand, I said. I let the silence hold. Ingrid, she said. I think we should talk about this in person. Okay, I said. Before the wedding. Okay, I said. I just want us to start off well, she said. You and me. I want us to be family. I want that too, I said. She said she would have Mikkel set something up. I said that was fine. We ended the call. I finished resecuring the boat cover. The wind had started to come in off the water, cold and smelling of salt, and the evergreens on the far side of the lot were moving. I went inside. The in-person conversation happened the following Thursday, at a restaurant in Anacortes that Daria had chosen. She drove up from Seattle. Mikkel came with her. Einar came with me, which I had told Mikkel in advance, and Mikkel had said that was fine. We sat in a booth near the window that looked out over the marina. Daria was warm at the start. She hugged me at the door, which she had never done before. She hugged Einar. She said she was glad we could do this. She ordered sparkling water and said the drive had been easy and asked about a boat she could see through the window. I told her it was a converted seiner. She said that was interesting. We ordered. The server brought bread. We talked about nothing for a few minutes, the way you do when the thing you are actually there to discuss is sitting in the center of the table between you and nobody has touched it yet. Mikkel asked Einar about a project he was bidding on in Skagit County. Einar said the permitting office was the usual experience. Daria laughed at the right moment. She was very good at that. Mikkel broke first. I think Daria just wants to clear the air, he said. I looked at him. I think that is good, I said. Daria set her water down. I know the text I sent was blunt, she said. I want to acknowledge that. I was overwhelmed and I said something in a way that I would not say it now. I appreciate that, I said. And I think your parents coming is actually fine, she said. It was just the timing and the way it was done. I nodded. But I do want to say something, she said, because I think it is important for us going forward. I waited. Mikkel and I are building our own life, she said. And part of that means that decisions about our family, who is at our wedding, how we structure our finances, what our priorities are, those are our decisions. Not the extended families. Of course, I said. And I think sometimes, she said, and her voice took on a gentle explanatory tone, the kind a person uses when they are about to say something they have rehearsed, families who are very close can sometimes have a hard time adjusting when that changes. When a new person comes in and the dynamic shifts. I kept my voice even. Can you say more about what you mean, I said. I mean that your parents have been very involved in Mikkel's life, she said. Which is lovely. But Mikkel and I need to be able to make our own choices without it becoming a family event every time. Like booking flights, I said. Like booking flights, she said. Without talking to us first. I called Mikkel, I said. Before I booked anything. I asked about the logistics. You asked about the guest list, she said. You did not say you were planning to book tickets. I was not sure yet, I said. I decided after. Right, she said. And the decision was made without us. I looked at her. Daria, I said. You texted me that my parents could figure it out themselves. I know, she said. And I have acknowledged that was poorly worded. They were not on the invitation list, I said. The list was tight, she said. For a wedding in Hawaii, I said. For my brother's wedding. His parents were not on the list. A small pause. Not everyone can fly to Hawaii, she said. We tried to be considerate of people's situations. My stomach dropped. I kept my face still. My parents can manage a flight, I said. Of course, she said quickly. That is not what I meant. What did you mean, I said. Another pause, shorter. I just mean that we made decisions based on who we thought could realistically attend, she said. And we did not want to put pressure on people financially. Mikkel was looking at the table. My father worked 31 years on that boatyard, I said. He put 2 kids through school. He paid your fiancé's rent when he needed it. Silence. I know that, Mikkel said quietly. I am not saying it to make you uncomfortable, I said. I am saying it because I think there is a misunderstanding about what my family has been to Mikkel. Daria's jaw was tight. I think there might be a misunderstanding about what role the extended family is going to play going forward, she said. Mikkel and I are a unit now. What happened before we were together is context. It is not a debt. I agree, I said. She looked at me. Then why does it feel like that is what this is about, she said. Like your parents are owed attendance at our wedding because of what they did before. I did not answer. The restaurant was quiet around us. The marina light was coming gray through the window. A seagull moved across the glass and was gone. Ingrid, Daria said, and her voice had gone back to the warm, deliberate register. I genuinely want a good relationship with you. I want your parents to feel welcome in our lives. But this has to start with mutual respect. And booking flights and a hotel without consulting us, after I had explained the situation, that did not feel like respect. I understand how it felt, I said. I am asking you to see it from our side, she said. I see it, I said. Then can we agree that going forward, decisions that affect our wedding, our finances, our lives, those go through us? I looked at her. I thought about my father's knee, which aches in cold weather from 31 years on a boatyard. I thought about my mother on a bus in November, $34 each way, so that Mikkel could keep her car. I thought about the account structure I had looked at on a Wednesday afternoon. I thought about the honeymoon hotel, paid through the joint account. I thought about the florist deposit, the caterer balance, the return flights. I thought about the folded sheet in the front pocket of my laptop bag, set there on a Wednesday afternoon without committing, within reach without declaring. I thought about the orchid in the terracotta pot, set down somewhere out of sight, and my mother on a hotel bed at midnight reading a magazine she had brought from home because she does not like to spend money on things she can bring from home. I thought about Mikkel at 26 calling me in a panic about rent. I thought about my father's voice when I relayed the call, calm and immediate, I will handle it. No deliberation. No condition. Just the steadiness of someone who has been showing up long enough that showing up is no longer a decision, it is just what happens next. I thought about the 6 departmental presentations and the soup and bread and the drive home in the dark. I thought about the account summary in my bag. I had not planned tonight to be the night. I had planned to wait to find a better moment to approach it more carefully. But she had just used the word mutual, and something in the way she said it, with the confidence of someone who had never questioned whether the mutuality was real, made me reach. I reached into my bag. I set the envelope on the table between us. Daria looked at it. Mikkel looked at it. "What is that?" Daria said. "Something I would like you both to read," I said. I slid it across the table. It sat there between us. Neither of them touched it yet. The server came and asked if we needed anything. I asked for more water. He brought it and moved away. The candle between us flickered once and steadied. Outside the window the marina sat dark and still. A gull landed on a piling and folded its wings. I waited. Mikkel reached for it first. Daria's hand moved at the same time and then stopped. She let him take it. He pulled the flap open. It was not sealed. I had left it folded and drew out the single sheet. He read it. I watched his face. He read slowly, which surprised me. Mikkel has always been a fast reader. He went through it twice. I could tell by the small movement of his eyes returning to the top. Then he set it down. Daria picked it up. She read faster. Halfway through her expression did not change, but something happened around her eyes. A tightening. Small. Then it was gone. She set it down. For a moment nobody spoke. The restaurant was quiet around us. The server had come and cleared our plates 10 minutes ago. The marina light through the window had gone from gray to dark. The candle on the table between us had burned down to a low flicker. "What is this?" Daria said. Her voice was even. "It is a summary of the account structure," I said. "The joint account. How the notifications are routed." "I know what it says," she said. "I am asking what you think you are doing." I kept my voice even. "I am showing Mikkel how his account is set up," I said. Mikkel looked at me. "The statements go to her email," I said. "The text alerts go to her phone. He does not get automatic notification of transactions." "That is a preference setting," Daria said. "We discussed it." "Mikkel," I said. "Did you know the vendor payments were coming out of this account?" He was quiet for a moment. "The wedding payments, yes," he said. "The catering balance," I said. "The return flights. The honeymoon hotel." "Yes," he said. "Did you know the florist deposit was recharged after the original one was disputed?" Silence. Mikkel looked at Daria. "There was a billing issue," she said. "I handled it." "The dispute was filed and then withdrawn," I said. "Within the same billing cycle. The vendor was paid twice and then credited once. The net difference was $340. Daria's jaw tightened. "That was an administrative error," she said. "The vendor acknowledged it." "I know," I said. "It is resolved." "I am not saying it is not. I am saying that Mikkel was not notified because the text alerts go to your phone." Mikkel looked at the sheet again. "I can change notification settings," he said slowly. "Yes," I said. "That is the point." Daria set her water down. "Ingrid," she said. "What you are doing right now is trying to create suspicion between me and my fiancé. The week before our wedding. I am showing him how his own account is configured," I said. "Because you want him to doubt me." "Because he has a right to see his own financial picture," I said. "He has full access," she said. "He can log in anytime." "He can," I said. "But he did not know about the florist billing cycle." "Because it was handled," she said. "Because I handle things so he does not have to." "I know," I said. I let the silence hold. "Mikkel," Daria said, and her voice shifted. The warmth came back in, the deliberate warmth, the kind that was always a choice. "This is exactly what I was talking about. This is your sister deciding that our finances are her business." Mikkel did not answer. "This is her inserting herself," Daria said. "This is what I was trying to explain earlier. About boundaries." "I heard what you said earlier," I said. "You said decisions about your finances go through you." "Yes," she said. "Both of you," I said. A pause. "Yes," she said more carefully. "So Mikkel should have the same visibility you have," I said. Her eyes went to the sheet on the table. "He does," she said. "He did not know about the florist," I said. "Because it was minor and resolved," she said. "It was $340, I said. "That is not minor to everyone." "It is minor to us," she said. "Is it minor to you, Mikkel?" I said. He looked at the table. His jaw moved once. I would have liked to have known, he said quietly. Daria looked at him. Mikkel, she said. I am not saying you did anything wrong, he said. I would have wanted to know. Silence fell over the table. The candle flickered. Outside, the marina lights were small and still on the dark water. Daria looked at me. You have come here, she said, to our dinner, with a document you printed about our private account, to make me look like I am hiding things from him. I came here because you asked me to, I said. You said you wanted to clear the air. I wanted to talk about the flights, she said. About respecting our decisions. And I wanted to talk about what decisions are being made, I said. And by whom. And whether all the relevant people have the same information. Her face was very still. You are implying something, she said. I am not implying anything, I said. The document does not imply anything. It states facts. You printed a document about our account. I printed a summary that is available to any joint account holder, I said. Mikkel could have printed it himself. But he did not, she said. You did. And you brought it here. Yes, I said. Why, she said. I thought about my answer. Because you told me that decisions about your finances go through you both, I said. And I wanted to make sure that was true. The color left her face. Not dramatically. It just receded, the way color does when something lands somewhere it was not expected. Mikkel was still looking at the table. Daria picked up the sheet again. She read it a second time. I watched her go through it. The tightening around her eyes came back and stayed. She set it down. I want to say something, she said, and I want you to hear it without reacting. Okay, I said. What you have done, she said, the flights, this document, this dinner, all of it, it is controlling behavior. It comes from a place of not being able to let your brother be his own person. To let him build his own life. And I understand it comes from love. But it is not healthy. And it is not good for Mikkel. I kept my voice even. You said earlier that families who are very close sometimes have trouble adjusting, I said. Yes, she said. That the new person coming in shifts the dynamic. Yes. And that Mikkel and you are a unit now, and what happened before is not a debt. She nodded. I agreed with you, I said. It is not a debt. But it is a record. She waited. A record of who showed up, I said. And who did not. And I think that record is relevant when we are deciding who gets to talk about what is healthy for Mikkel. Silence. You just told me, I said, that you want decisions about your finances to go through you both. Mutual respect was the word you used. But the account that pays your vendors, your hotel, your flights, sends its statements to your email alone. That was a practical decision, she said. Probably, I said. But it meant that when the florist double-charged, Mikkel did not know. And it means that going forward, whenever a financial decision gets made, Mikkel will only know about it if you tell him. I tell him everything relevant, she said. You did not tell him about the florist, I said. Her voice went flat. Because it was resolved. Because you decided it was resolved, I said. And that it was not relevant. And that he did not need to know. Mikkel looked up. Daria looked at him. Then at me. Then at the sheet on the table. She reached out and picked it up. She held it for a moment. I thought she was going to fold it. She did not. She set it back down. I think, she said, that you have made your point. I hope so, I said. And I think, she said, that this conversation has gone far enough. Okay, I said. I would like to go, she said. She looked at Mikkel. I would like to go. He nodded. He started gathering his jacket. Ingrid, Daria said. I looked at her. You said this is not about debt, she said. But you came here with a printed document about our account. You said this is about mutual respect, I said. So is this. So does Mikkel. She put her coat on. She picked up her bag. She looked at me one more time. I hope we can move past this, she said. I want us to be family, I said. That is why this mattered. I hope Mikkel has full visibility on his own finances going forward, I said. Then I think a lot of things become easier. She left. She walked to the door without hurrying, without slamming anything, without another word. Mikkel stood at the table for a moment. He looked at the sheet still sitting there. He looked at me. I did not know about the florist, he said. I know, I said. I am going to change the notification settings, he said. Okay, I said. He picked up the sheet. He folded it once and put it in his jacket pocket. Then he followed her out. Einar and I sat at the table for a moment after they left. The candle had gone out on its own, sometime in the last few minutes. The server came by and asked if we needed anything. I asked for the check. He brought it. I paid it. We put on our coats. We walked out into the cold air. The marina was dark and quiet. The water barely moved. Somewhere further down the dock a line was tapping against a cleat, a small hollow sound, steady. Einar did not say anything until we reached the truck. You did not raise your voice, he said. No, I said. Not once. No, I said. He unlocked the truck. We got in. He started the engine and let it run for a moment. The heater came on. Outside, the dock lights made long pale lines on the water. You okay, he said. Yes, I said. He pulled out of the lot. We drove home along the water road, the harbor on one side, the evergreens on the other, the headlights picking out the wet surface of the road ahead of us. I looked out at the dark water for a while. I thought about the sheet in my laptop bag. The copy I had kept, folded once, same as the original. I thought about printing it on a Wednesday afternoon in a quiet office while the harbor went gray outside the window. I thought about placing it in my bag without knowing if I would use it. Some things you prepare without committing. You just make sure they are within reach. Then I looked at the road. My parents flew to Kauai on a Tuesday morning out of SeaTac, a 6:15 a.m. departure that required my father to be up at 3:30 a.m., which he did without complaint. My mother texted me from the gate. She said the airport coffee was expensive. I told her to get it anyway. They landed in Lihu in the early afternoon. My mother sent a photo from the car, palm trees and a road that curved away into green hills, the light different from the light at home. She wrote, "Not raining." 3 words. I read it at my desk and set my phone down and went back to work. The wedding was on a Saturday. My father wore his good shirt, the blue one he saves for occasions that matter. My mother had her hair done the day before, at the salon in Anacortes where she has gone for 20 years. She brought the dress she wore to our wedding 6 years ago, altered at the waist to fit better now. She had not bought a new dress. She was not going to spend money on a new dress for a wedding she had not been invited to, and I understood that, and I thought it was right. They sat in the second row. Mikkel saw them when he walked in, and I watched his face in the photo my cousin took at that exact moment, the way his face changed when he saw them sitting there. His eyes went wide for just a second and then something in him settled, like a thing that had been uncertain resolving into a fact. That photograph is the part one keep coming back to. I have looked at it many times since then. Something about the fraction of a second it captures, the way the camera found his face at the exact moment his nervous system registered what his eyes were seeing. I know that expression. I have seen it on him before, not often, but I have seen it. It is the expression he gets when something he was afraid of not having turns out to still be there. Daria saw them too. She was composed. She was, I will say this honestly, better at composed than most people. She greeted my mother at the reception with a hug. She told my father the venue was beautiful. She was warm and present and entirely controlled. I respected that. I also watched Mikkel the whole evening, and I watched the way he talked to my father, the way my father put a hand on his son's shoulder during the first dance, the way my mother cried quietly and did not try to hide it. That was what I had bought with 2 plane tickets and a hotel room. Not justice. Not a confrontation outcome. Just that moment. My father's hand on my brother's shoulder. The notification settings on the joint account were changed before they flew home. Mikkel told me quietly at the reception, standing near the bar with 2 drinks he had carried over from the far end of the room. He held one out to me. I took it. He said Daria understood. He said they had talked. I nodded. I did not ask what they said. That was between them. I was not going to make him account for a conversation he had in private with his wife. What happened between them was theirs. What had already happened, the sheet, the table, the candle burning down, all of that was done, and I was not going to carry it into the reception. We stood there for a moment without speaking. The tables were set with white flowers and low candles. The water was visible through the open pavilion wall, dark and enormous, the kind of darkness that makes you understand how small everything is. A band had started playing something slow and instrumental. My parents were at a table near the left wall. My father was talking to Mikkel's college friend, nodding the way he does when he is being polite to someone he has just met and is genuinely trying to find common ground. My mother had her hand on the table and she was watching the dance floor. I am glad they are here, Mikkel said. Me too, I said. He looked at his drink. He turned it once in his hand. I am sorry, he said. I did not answer right away. I looked at my mother's hand on the table. I thought about what it would have cost her not to be here. Not the ticket. The other thing. The understanding of what it would mean to be absent from her son's wedding. To be in Anacortes on a Saturday in September, knowing where he was and not being there. I know, I said. He nodded. She did not know, he said, about what they did. All of it. I did not tell her. I thought I had, but I had not. Not the whole of it. I did not say anything. I am going to tell her, he said. Not tonight. But I am going to tell her. That is between you two, I said. I know, he said. Still. We stood there for another moment. The candle at the nearest table reflected in the dark water beyond the pavilion wall, a small orange double, one real and one that moved. My mother had turned in her chair and was watching the musicians. My father had his hands clasped on the table the way he always does when he is comfortable somewhere and does not need to perform being comfortable. That was enough. That was enough for why I had done it. He nodded. That was enough. We did not say anything else about it. The band shifted into something with more pace and a few people drifted toward the dance floor and Mikkel went to find Daria and I went to sit with my parents. The flight home from Lihu was long. I sat in a window seat and watched the ocean until the coast appeared, and then I watched the coast until it became the mountains, and then the mountains became the sound and we began to descend. My mother slept most of the way. My father read a paperback he had bought at the airport. The kind of book that has a fishing boat on the cover. He read the same page 3 times. I could tell because I watched him. He caught me watching. Good trip, he said. Good trip, I said. He went back to his book. My mother shifted in her seat. The mountains outside the window were capped in snow even in September, and the sound below us was dark blue and very still from that height, the way everything looks still from far enough away. I landed in Anacortes just before dark. Einar picked me up at the small regional terminal. He had coffee in the cup holder and the truck smelled like the water and sawdust. I got in and closed the door and he pulled out and we drove home without saying much. That was enough. I will tell you that in the months that followed, things were not easy. Daria and I reached a kind of equilibrium that I would not call warmth. We were cordial. We were polite. At family dinners she asked about work and I asked about her projects and we were both careful with each other the way people are careful when they know where the edges are. There were moments when she was genuinely funny, quick observations about a neighbor or a contractor she was dealing with, and I laughed because it was actually funny, and she looked briefly surprised when I did, as if she had expected me to resist it. I did not resist it. I was not going to be the person who made warmth impossible. That was not who I wanted to be at a dinner table. The first time she asked me a professional question, about 6 months after the wedding, I was caught off guard by it. She was planning an event for a small business client and she wanted to know whether a certain payment structure made sense from a cash flow perspective. She asked me the way someone asks who has decided to ask despite not wanting to. Directly, without preamble, at the edge of a conversation about something else. I told her what I knew. Clearly, without editorializing. She listened. She asked a follow-up question. I answered it. She thanked me. That was the whole of it. She went back to the other conversation. I did too. Nothing about the exchange suggested we had turned a corner. But something in it suggested we were both willing to be useful to each other, and in a relationship that had been strained, useful is not a small thing. But there was a cautiousness now that had not been there before, at least not openly. She was more careful about what she said around me. I noticed it in small ways, a pause before a certain kind of comment, a redirected sentence. I did not know whether this was worse or better than what had come before. I decided it did not matter which. It was what it was. Mikkel called me more. That was the change I noticed most. He called more and he said more, and sometimes he said things that told me he was paying attention to his own life in a different way than he had been. He mentioned things he had looked up himself, a billing question, an account preference setting, something Daria had mentioned about a vendor they were using for an event she was planning. He mentioned these things the way you mention things when you are keeping track again, when the ledger has been returned to you and you are relearning the habit of reading it. I did not comment on this. I just answered the phone. There was one evening in November about 8 weeks after the wedding when he called late after 10, which he almost never does. He did not say what prompted it. We talked for 40 minutes about nothing in particular, A boat he had seen at the marina in Seattle, a movie Einar and I had watched, whether the Anacortes ferry schedule was going to change for the winter. Near the end of the call he was quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that is not empty. I am glad they were there, he said. I did not ask what he meant. Me too, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I talked to her. About all of it. I wanted you to know. I did not ask what she said. Okay, I said. I think she understood more than I thought, he said. Some of it. Okay, I said. I could hear him in his apartment, a familiar background quiet, the specific silence of a room in Seattle late at night, different from the silence here, more compressed, walls closer together, less air moving. Thank you, he said. I wanted to say that. I know, I said. We said goodnight. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Outside the window the harbor was black and the dock light made a small circle on the water. The wind was moving the surface just enough to break the reflection into something that shifted and reformed. I kept a copy of the account summary in a folder in my filing cabinet at home. I did not look at it often. I kept it the way you keep certain documents, not because you plan to use them, but because having them means you will not have to reconstruct what happened if you ever need to be precise about what happened. I am someone who keeps documents. I have been that person for a long time. I will tell you something I have not said yet. I do not know if what I did was entirely right. I believe it was right in the way that matters most, which is that my parents were at the wedding and Mikkel had the information he was entitled to have. But I have thought many times about whether there was a cleaner version of what I did, a version where nobody had to sit across a restaurant table from a printed account summary. I have thought about whether I could have handled it with a conversation instead. A direct conversation with Daria, or with Mikkel, or with both of them, about what the exclusion meant and what I was willing to do about it. I have not been able to find that version. Not because I did not try. Because by the time I knew what was happening, the conversation had already happened. She had already sent the text. Mikkel had already said he did not want to make it a bigger thing. The window for a different kind of resolution had already closed, and what remained was the window I had. I used it the way I use every window. Carefully, completely, without looking away from any of the numbers. I am aware that other people, seeing the same situation, might have made different choices. Might have called Daria directly and said, I know about the account structure. I think Mikkel should know too. Let us have that conversation before it becomes something else. That is a version I have thought about. It is a cleaner version in certain ways. It does not involve a printed sheet on a restaurant table. It does not create the specific kind of tension that comes from sitting across from someone who is looking at documentary evidence of how they have arranged their own life. I do not know whether that version would have worked. I know what I know, which is that by the time I understood what was happening, I had already been told not to make it a bigger thing. I had already been told it was not a problem. I had already been given a text that said, in 11 words, everything I needed to know about how my parents were regarded by the person my brother was going to spend his life with. There is something I keep thinking about from that summer, from the months between the group text and the wedding. I keep thinking about the fact that Mikkel did not know what he did not know. He did not know the statements were going only to her. He did not know about the florist billing cycle. He did not know, I think, the full shape of what had been arranged around him, the way visibility had been quietly restructured so that the picture he saw was the picture she had curated for him. I am not saying she did this with bad intent. I am not saying it at all. I am saying that it was true, and that when it was no longer true, things changed, and I noticed the change in my brother's voice on a late November phone call when he said I am glad they were there and meant more than he was saying. My father retired from the boatyard 14 months after the wedding. 31 years. At the small party my mother put together at the house, 12 people, the people who mattered, soup and bread and a cake she made herself with his name on it in blue frosting. Mikkel was across the table from me, and I watched him while my father spoke. He had one hand flat on the table and he was looking at my father the way you look at something you are trying to memorize. Not dramatically. Just carefully. I knew the expression. I had seen it on his face in the photograph from the wedding, and I had seen it before that, years before, in a room in Bellingham that smelled like old carpet and fluorescent lights. When he was presenting work he was not entirely sure of yet to an audience of 2 people who were entirely sure of him. When my father sat down, Mikkel picked up his glass and held it up for a moment without saying anything. My father looked at him. He nodded once, short, the way he nods when he is moved and does not want to show it. My mother, beside him, pressed her lips together and looked at the cake. The party wound down the way small parties do, gradually, people putting on coats, saying longer goodbyes than they had planned, finding one more thing to mention before the door. Our neighbor who had known my father since the early days at the boatyard shook his hand for a long time before he left. One of my mother's friends stayed to help with the dishes, and I stood in the kitchen and dried plates while they talked about nothing, the ordinary close of evening talk that makes a house feel inhabited. Mikkel came and found me while I was drying. "He is something else," he said. "Meaning our father." "He is," I said. We stood there for a moment in the kitchen doorway, the two of us, the sound of voices from the other room, the smell of soup and dish soap and something sweet from the cooling cake. He looked at me. "I have been thinking about what you said," he said. "At the restaurant. The record." I did not say anything. "I think you were right," he said. I dried another plate. "I hope things are good," I said. "Between you two." "They are getting better," he said. "She is trying." I think she did not understand what she was doing. "Not fully." "I believe that," I said. He nodded. After most people had left, when it was just the four of us in the kitchen with the plates being cleared and the light going softer outside, he went to the hook by the back door. He said that was the only thing he knew how to do consistently, and he had tried to do it consistently. He said he hoped he had done it enough. He looked at Mikkel when he said it and at me. Then he sat down and ate his cake. After most people had left, when it was just the four of us in the kitchen with the plates being cleared and the light going softer outside, he went to the hook by the back door and took down his boatyard key ring. He had carried it so long the key fob was worn smooth on one side. He set it on the counter without saying anything. He just set it down and turned to the sink and washed his hands, the water running, his back to us for a moment. I picked it up. The metal was smooth and a little warm from his pocket. There were 3 keys and a faded tag with the boatyard's old logo on it, the one they stopped using years ago, the silhouette of a mast against a flat horizon. I held it for a moment. I thought about all the mornings it had left this house in his jacket pocket and all the evenings it had come back. I thought about 31 years of that, the weight of the ring becoming part of his daily motion, the shape of it wearing into the fabric of the pocket that carried it. I thought about a bad left knee and folding chairs and a bus in November and $34 each way and soup and bread and a 6-hour drive to Bellingham, there and back in the dark. I set the key ring back down next to the dish rack. My mother came and stood beside me. She looked at the key ring on the counter. She did not pick it up. She looked at it the way you look at something that has been in the house so long you stopped seeing it, until it is suddenly not where it belongs anymore. "He was good at it," she said. Not meaning the job specifically. Meaning the whole of it. The showing up. "He was," I said. She put her hand on my arm for a moment. Then she moved away to start stacking the leftover bread in the container she had brought it in. She wrapped it carefully the way she wraps everything, with attention, without wasted movement. She handed the container to Mikkel to put on the shelf he could reach without climbing. I watched them in that kitchen, my parents and my brother, moving around each other in the small efficient way of people who have done this together for a long time, who know where each other's hands are going to be without looking. My father dried his hands on the dish towel and hung it back on the oven handle and stood for a moment with his hand resting on the counter near the key ring. He did not look at it. He just stood there. Some things you carry for so long they shape the hand that holds them. I thought about what it means to show up. Not once, not when it is easy or visible or likely to be remembered, but over and over in the small ways that never make a story anyone tells. The bus fare, the car, the folding chairs in a room that smelled like old carpet. I thought about what it costs to do that quietly and not keep a ledger and not wait to be thanked. I thought about my mother saying thank you and not calling again. I thought about what it takes to keep offering and keep being told it is covered and keep showing up anyway in the ways that are left to you. I thought about a text message, if they want to come they can figure it out. Not my problem. I thought about the account summary I had printed. 1 sheet. Facts, arranged clearly. I thought about what it had cost me to print it, not in money but in what comes after. The careful cordial dinners. The watchfulness. The long work of rebuilding something that had been strained. I had known when I put it in my bag that there would be a cost. I put it in my bag anyway because some things cost you regardless. The version of events where I did not print it, did not bring it, did not reach for it when she said mutual, that version had its own costs. I had weighed them and made my choice and I was not going to pretend otherwise. I thought about the photo my cousin sent me from the wedding, the one from the moment Mikkel walked in and saw them in the second row. I had looked at it many times by then. I had looked at it that morning before the party while my mother was in the kitchen and my father was changing into his good shirt. I looked at it the way you look at something you want to keep understanding. My father's hand on my brother's shoulder during the first dance. My mother's quiet cry. The way the light in that photograph was different from the light at home, warmer and more open, the kind of light that makes things look both real and finished at the same time. Some things are not a debt. But they are a record. And the record has weight, even when no one is counting. My father's key ring sat on the counter for 3 days after the party. Then my mother moved it to the small ceramic dish by the back door where spare keys live. She did not say anything about moving it. She just moved it. It is still there. I noticed it on a Sunday morning in January when I came to pick them up for a family thing, a small inconsequential gathering, the kind of ordinary occasion that does not get marked in any calendar, but that constitutes the actual substance of a life. I noticed it and I did not say anything about it either. If this story stayed with you, I hope you will share it with someone who understands what it means to show up quietly. They will know what it is about.